Only specially selected soldiers from the Kremlin garrison perform this solemn duty, standing watch hour after hour, year after year, through harsh weather, biting cold, sweltering heat, rain, and snow. Watching this enduring ritual in Red Square, my thoughts drift to Lenin's embalmed body, resting eternally in the mausoleum at the nation's heart, a silent symbol of the Soviet era. The Kremlin, a magnificent complex, houses government buildings, military barracks, ancient palaces, priceless museums, and venerable churches reflecting the nation's spiritual heritage. Since its 12th century founding, it has symbolized security and strength, guarding the people. Over the last 70 years, it has also come to be seen as a fortress, protecting leaders from citizens. On this day, crowds from all over Moscow gather enthusiastically for the revolution's anniversary, filling the air with chants and red banners. For the first time, we filmed inside a marching column, revealing the participants' precision and unity. I spoke with private newspaper print workers, who allowed us to accompany them from the printing house to Red Square. Local party officials encouraged us with words of solidarity and pride. My companions, many accustomed to marching like their forebears, remained calm despite soldiers flanking us. Marching in columns is more than discipline. It expresses collective love for leaders and their reciprocal love for the people. Near Red Square, soldiers yielded to plainclothes militia and KGB agents, acknowledging our official arrival. Though KGB agents often appear grim, this is just their daily work. I wonder if they notice the crowd's happiness. In building communism, have we overlooked the Kremlin's beauty and history? The Cathedral of the Assumption, the oldest Kremlin cathedral, and now a museum, hasn't held services for 72 years. As its curator for over 15 years, I know the fragile masterpieces inside cannot endure candle smoke or icon kissing without damage. To preserve Russian culture, such churches must remain museums protected for ritual wear. Once sacred spaces, they now attract visitors eager to see their splendor. The Kremlin is wrapped in fantasy and legend. See the largest cannon ever fired, whose cannonballs are too big for battle. Witness the largest bell never rung. Nearby, the New Year's Children's Party in the Grand Palace of Congresses delights kids with fantasy and joy while parents wait outside. After festivities, reality returns with invisible lines marking off-limits areas, and KGB soldiers guide children safely through the complex. Don't worry, adults say, the children can't get lost. The Kremlin watches over them. Yet every parent knows the path leads to Lenin's resting place, a somber reminder of the past. But the line at Lenin's mausoleum is always the longest and most solemn. It's said it was extremely cold the day Lenin died, a chilling detail lingering in the nation's memory. His wife pleaded for him to be laid to rest properly. Yet the Bolsheviks, having banished God, could not bear to part with him. Instead, they preserved his body in a pagan temple where his spirit refuses to rest. Across the country, in this dark time, strange fairy tales circulate. The clock in Lenin's apartment has stopped, symbolizing a frozen moment in history. Only honored guests are granted a tour, during which the harsh realities of the unleashed terror are omitted. Instead, visitors hear stories about how much he loved working, how he cherished listening to his sister play Beethoven, and how devoted he was as a husband, despite having no children of his own. Yet every child knows that Lenin loved children. A corpse that loves children still lies in the Senate building. The guardians of these legends still roam like shadows, acting as loyal attendants in a mansion where the master is absent. Valerie, who works in the Chilean Prime Minister's press office, wants to show us the grandest room in the Senate building, called the Serglov Hall. This room is used for various ceremonial occasions, such as awarding decorations or marking important dates. In the past, it was a hub of government activity, but now it serves only for formal meetings. It feels as if this place has been trapped in a spell, asleep and waiting. Who will awaken these empty rooms? Next door, in the Brazilian building, the Supreme Soviet is in session. The new men in the Kremlin have no time for fairy tales. A political game is underway, and the referee has just kicked off. The world's press is analyzing the moves. The conservatives are well prepared and uniformed, the radicals attack from the left, and immigration policies are hotly debated. Everyone is eager to see which team the prime minister will support. Thousands took to the streets of Moscow to demand an end to the Communist Party's monopoly on power. Yet even today, police sealed off Red Square and blocked access to the Kremlin, making the march unofficial. So why did Radio Moscow publicize it? Very little is clear in Soviet politics at this moment. When asked why his group is considering breaking away from the Communist Party to form a new one, Yuri, a leader of the radicals, explains that for political commentators like Jonathan Dimbleby of the BBC, it is now easier to cover politics and report opposing views such as theirs. Still, the party holds the reins. I wanted to speak with the one man who might change everything, Yeltsin. What does he think about the Kremlin's current image? He acknowledges the presence of democratic groups, some more radical than himself, and points out that it would be lazy not to criticize the government these days. But why doesn't the government respond? Are they deaf? Demonstrators want dialogue with the Kremlin's powers, but it is not round. Lenin sat firmly around it, and so did Uncle Joe and his successors. They looked at each other with cautious smiles, never knowing whose chair would be empty tomorrow, or who had played a part in the next erasure. Yet there was one pair of eyes they dared not meet. When Stalin left this place, it marked a time of horror, with dark stains on the walls and people buried at different times. Sometimes victims killed one another. Sometimes they were executioners, and those executed were buried here as well. The main perpetrators rest in individual graves. Stalin, Zhdanov, the most notorious figures. This is the grim but undeniable part of our history. Similarly, just as crumbling kings stand together near Westminster, I believe it's necessary to have these reminders here. We are still reflecting on what happened to us, both within the Kremlin and beyond. It's hard to believe that these serene and beautiful buildings once housed the apartment of one of the world's most fearsome men. Stalin was the last leader to actually live inside the Kremlin, completely isolated from the outside world, and it was just like this when he died. People from all over Moscow came to mourn at his funeral. The horrors of that time are being recreated for the screen through film, capturing the disbelief that the great leader was not immortal. I was here, and I clearly remember everything that happened on March 5, 1953. My entire childhood was under the shadow of Stalin's dictatorship. Whether I wanted it or not, it shaped my life. That's why I believe, unfortunately, his influence still lingers, and through our film, we attempt to finally bury him forever. Stalin's shadow still demands blood. In the basement of the Supreme Soviet, deputies investigate the causes of nationalist violence while the empire crumbles. Behind the scenes, the KGB goes about their daily work, equipped with their tools of control. Few visitors to the Kremlin know what actually happens in the Trinity Tower. The Kremlin regiment has even formed their own orchestra. Lenin loved music, and so the KGB cherishes the classics. Will they remain faithful to this tradition? The Grand Kremlin Palace stands tall and proud, its grand staircase having been traversed by both czars and Soviet leaders. It was here that Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, was welcomed as he came to receive an award in the magnificent St. George's Hall. The Garden, awarded the highest Soviet honor, the Hero of the Soviet Union, and the Order of St. George, was given to Russia's military heroes. St. George's Hall and the neighboring St. Vladimir Hall have witnessed few ceremonies in recent years, and only curators are allowed into the Kremlin Palace's most magnificent rooms. There is little to celebrate now. The May Day parade presents an orderly procession of party loyalists filing through Red Square under the watchful eye of their leader. But for Mikhail Gorbachev, things went terribly wrong one day as radicals marched under a red flag with the hammer and sickle torn out, shouting their opposition. Gorbachev held his ground, drumming his fingers in frustration as they screamed, "Shame! Shame!" and demanded the Politburo leave. Kremlin leaders eventually turned their backs to the crowd, leaving amid jeers and calls for resignation. Beneath the Kremlin wall lies the tomb of the unknown soldier. We must strive to understand this generation, their cherished medals, their victories, and the deaths of their comrades in arms. They must believe their sacrifices were not in vain. Today's cadets have no such past, yet they act like their predecessors, coming to the Kremlin for their graduation day, seeing it as a symbol of military power and authority. The Kremlin stands as Russia's heart and a powerful symbol of its rich history, culture, and political strength, embodying centuries of national identity and resilience. No photo or film can truly capture the overwhelming experience of visiting this vast fortress, where imposing red brick walls and centuries-old architecture tell stories of power, endurance, and transformation through turbulent times. Visitors glimpse only part of the sprawling interiors. Many rooms, like the intricately decorated 17th-century Tarim Palace, with its unique frescoes and gilded chambers, remain closed to preserve their mystery and delicate artistry. Lenin ordered the preservation of many of these historic buildings, recognizing their cultural importance, though some, like the Monastery of the Holy Miracle, were irrevocably lost during the Soviet secularization campaigns that sought to diminish religious influence. Recently, church bells have returned to Cathedral Square, their resonant peals signaling a spiritual revival as liturgies and traditional ceremonies resume after decades of Soviet suppression, rekindling a connection to Russia's Orthodox roots. Historically, the Kremlin was both Russia's political and Orthodox spiritual center. Today, the Patriarch's Palace functions mainly as a museum, preserving ecclesiastical artifacts, while the Cathedral of the Assumption opens only on special religious occasions, maintaining its sanctity and mystique for worshippers and visitors alike. Passing the Trinity Gate evokes a journey back to pre-revolutionary times, where relics such as a martyr's icon and a somber portrait of Tsar Nicholas II, who was tragically assassinated in 1917, remind visitors of the personal human stories that intersect with grand historical events. His great-great-niece's recent visit added a poignant personal historical connection to the site, bridging past and present generations. Princess Anne, the first British royal visitor in recent decades, toured the Armoury Museum, deeply admiring treasures linked to her ancestors, including Catherine the Great's opulent throne and the glittering Tsarist crowns, which symbolize the intricate ties between Russian and European royalty. The Kremlin commemorated the Romanov dynasty's 300th anniversary with grand exhibitions and ceremonies, highlighting those enduring dynastic connections. Fabergé's exquisitely jeweled eggs and objet d'art continue to captivate visitors with their unparalleled craftsmanship, while the museum's English silverware collection, some pieces dating as far back as the reign of James I, is set to be exhibited in London, showcasing centuries of cultural exchange and artistic excellence. Historically, Kremlin banquets were lavish affairs, where guests toasted the Queen amidst concerns over food supply, a stark contrast to today's challenges in securing sufficient nourishment even for high-ranking officials within the fortress. Yet, the Supreme Soviet's buffet, offering fare that may not be extravagant but is reliable and often better than many outside options, reflects a pragmatic approach to sustenance in these times. Recently, a selection of sought-after books arrived in the lobby, including an English dictionary, memoirs of notable figures, and a practical guide on food-growing techniques, reflecting ongoing cultural exchange and current practical needs within this living fortress, where the interplay of past and present continues to inspire resilience, renewal, and a profound sense of historical continuity. Nearly every day, a head of state visits Soviet leaders for a photo op. Today, it's the Bulgarian Prime Minister, whose country has long supplied the Soviet Union with tomatoes. Will that continue? Paris Gilson, now president of the Russian parliament, offers a clear solution amid growing uncertainty in a hall once filled with unanimous votes. The press wonders if the general secretary will be re-elected, if his policies will hold, if the Communist Party will relinquish power, or if radicals will cause a split. Party bureaucrats face a tough choice. The general secretary's long speech warned that blocking reforms would lead to dark times, yet delegates responded lukewarmly. They don't want to vote for him, but don't know how to oppose him. Kremlin rulers, protected by the KGB and army, seem unaware that many no longer fear them or the fortress. Even the Savior Tower loses its significance. The queue to the mausoleum shortens as people rally behind Gilson, who left the party and Kremlin today. But where will he lead, and do the powerful care? The Senate's Oval Hall, where the Council of Ministers meets, symbolizes bureaucratic preference for the status quo. So who should the Kremlin belong to? Butchov and his circle? The military, church, museums, czars, or the people? Despite videos of lavish food, the question remains, Kremlin, to whom do you belong? As Russians say, above Russia is the Kremlin, above the Kremlin, the heavens.